So we're going to be working today on drawing the hands on a clock, on an analog clock. Now we've already kind of had some practice with this last week, but the focus of this entire lesson is accurately drawing the hands on the clock. What's really important to remember first is that the hour hand, so if we look at my Judy clock, the hour hand is the shorter hand of the two hands. And the minute hand, which tells us the minutes, is the longer of the two hands. So it's really important that we always draw a shorter hour hand and a longer minute hand when we're drawing the hands on our clock so that we don't confuse the person that's trying to read our clock. Otherwise, they won't be able to tell what time it is exactly. So that's one thing you have to remember when drawing time on a clock. But you also have to think about how close we're getting to the next hour, because we have to remember that a clock it's not just the minute hand that moves on its own, but if you watch really carefully, if I put this on 3 o'clock, for example, as I move my minute hand and minutes start to pass, the gears are moving on this clock, you'll notice that the hour hand is starting to move closer towards the next hour, which is 4 o'clock. So as we get to 3:30, you will see that the hour hand, is actually in between the 3 and the 4. So it's no longer directly on the 3. So if you draw the hour hand pointing directly to the 3 when it's 3:30, that's actually not correct. Your hour hand should be in between the 3 and the 4, because as you learned yesterday, half an hour has passed from 3 o'clock and we're half an hour closer to 4 o'clock. So we're halfway between 3 and 4. So that should make more sense to you now. As I keep moving my minute hands, we're getting closer to the next hour, which is 4 o'clock. You'll see that the hour hand almost looks like it's touching the 4 o'clock, which tricks some friends because they think it's already 4 and they'll say 4:45, but that's not correct. It's still 3:45. So we're getting closer. It's actually not directly on the 4 until we get to the 12. Then, oops, you can't see what I'm doing. When it gets to the 12, then we can say it's directly 4 o'clock. It is 4 o'clock because the hour hand is on the 4. So keep that in mind as we are drawing our hour hands and minute hands today. So the first time that we're going to look at is actually, I'm going to write it in digital, 1:05. So that means that 5 minutes have passed from 1 o'clock. So what I would recommend for you to do, and I'm going to pull this out of it so that it's easier for you to see, is grab your small Judy clock that the school has given you, because that's really going to help you with your exploration today. And make that time. So my time is 1:05. I'm actually going to go around this way because it's closer, although the clock always goes in the opposite direction. So this is 1 o'clock. I need to get to 1:05. So I'm going to look and see what happens because I'm using this to help me visualize how I should draw the hands. So when I move the minute hand to the 5, because that's 5, it's the first 5 minutes, which is on the 1, I can see that on this Judy clock, basically the hour and minute hand almost line up with each other. So I'm going to try to draw this the same way. So how am I going to do this? I am going to grab I like to use a ruler. You're going to do this digitally, so you don't need the ruler. Just try your best with digital drawing. So I am going to put my hour hand first because I know it's almost still on the 1. It's a little bit off from the 1 because 5 minutes has passed. But I want to remember to keep it short. So I can go ahead and erase if I notice, whoa, that might be too long for my hour hand. Now my minute hand is also on the 1 o'clock because it is 5 minutes past. So my minute hand has to be longer, and I can indicate that this is the hour hand, this is the minute hand because I have 2 arrows. So this is 1:05, and I really use the Judy clock to help me figure out what it would look like. So that's my suggestion to you today. Let's do another time. The next one we're going to do is 6:25. So I'm going to draw it in digital time so that you remember what time we're looking at. And we're gonna go ahead and make this on our Judy clock first, just like we did with the other time. So I'm going to get, I'm gonna position my clock so that you can hopefully see it. And I'm gonna get to 6 o'clock first, because I like to always start on the hour as I'm thinking about my times. So, oops, went too far. So this is 6 o'clock on my clock. So I'm gonna watch, because the Judy clock is cool, it has gears in the back. So it actually, the hands move in unison. That means they move at the same time. So as I move my minute hand, my hour hand will move automatically. So 6:25. So I'm gonna take my hour hand, and just like last week, I'm gonna count by 5s to get to 25. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So I've noticed that my hour hand shifted to almost in the middle of 6 and 7. So when I draw my hour hand, my shorter hand, it's going to be in between the 6 and the 7. And then my minute hand is going to be exactly on 5, because that's 25 minutes after the hour. So I'm going to try to remember that. So I'm going to start with my hour hand. So my hour hand, again, is going to be the shorter of the two hands. I really have to remember the length of my hands. That's a bit too long, and that's a bit too on the 7 side. So I'm gonna try again, and that's totally fine, friends, if you have to try again. So that's better where it's positioned, still a bit too long. So I'm going to erase some and draw my arrow when I'm happy with my hour hand. So my minute hand is going to be the longer of the two hands, and it's going to be very like on top of the 5, because that is 25. That is an accurate looking clock to me, because it looks similar to what I had on my Judy clock. So we're gonna use the Judy clock to help us figure out the times today. So we're gonna do 2 more together, just to get you off on the right foot. And then you're gonna go ahead and try this on your own on the Nearpod. So the third one we're going to look at is going to be 7:30. So I can use the Judy clock for this, but this time I'm actually going to use my critical thinking skills, meaning I'm going to think of what 6:25 looked like and think about where my hour hand will probably be when we're at 7:30. So I remember that my hour hand, if half an hour has passed, is exactly halfway between the hour that it's on and the next hour. So it would be between the 7 and the 8, and it would be exactly in the middle of them. And it's on the shorter side, our hour hand, so I'm gonna make sure that it's short enough to pass for an hour hand so that no one else thinks it's in a minute hand. My minute hand, because it is 30 minutes exactly, I know is going to go on the 6. I know this from first grade, but I also know this because I can skip count to find 30. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that means that my minute hand will go exactly pointing towards the 6. That looks pretty accurate to me. We're going to do our very last one. This is probably the trickiest of all of the problems that we looked at today. So the time we're going to be putting on the clock is 10:55. So over here, we're getting super duper close to the next hour. So I'm gonna go ahead and make 10 o'clock really quickly on my Judy clock, and I'm gonna pull it out for you to see it. So here we have 10 o'clock. I am going to skip count until I get to 55. I'm looking very hard at the hour hand to see what happens to it as I get closer to 10:55. So that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So where does my hour hand look? My hour hand is getting super duper close to the 11 because we're only 5 minutes away from 11 o'clock. So it's not exactly on 11, but it's almost on the 11, the hour hand. So I want to remember that. And then my minute hand is also, well, my minute hand's exactly on the 11. So I'm gonna try to put my hour hand so that it looks like it's really close to the 11, but it's not quite there yet. And my minute hand, which is longer, is going to be exactly on the 11. So this is 10:55. It's almost 11 o'clock. Does that look similar to our Judy clock? Yes, it does. So definitely use that tool, that Judy clock today, if you're having trouble figuring out exactly where the hour hand should go when you have different minutes that pass, okay? Very important for us to be accurate with this. Have lots of fun doing this. Remember, it's harder to draw digitally, so if it's not exactly perfect, that's okay. Just try to get it to look as best you can. And I will see you tomorrow for some more fun. Bye for now.